Welcome to Season 3 of the Dance Reel podcast. I'm Kate Histon. Before we dive into this episode, I would love a favour from you. To help us bring some wonderful guests to our show and grow, please subscribe or follow this channel, like, comment and share with a friend. That would be a great help. Thank you so much. This episode was sponsored by Master Dancer Mindset. Know yourself, be yourself and express yourself on and off the stage. Hello, Lisa. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. I'm really excited that you took me up on the offer to interview you.
Took a while, but yes, happy to be here, Kate.
I think it's great because there are so many people that listen to this podcast. We've got dance parents, teachers, and one of the popular questions is how do judges judge competitions and Eisteddfods? And I thought, why not bring in the Queen herself, the president of Australian Dance Adjudicators, and we can just pick your brain.
Yes, more than happy for you to pick my brain.
Before we start in your role now, what led you to become a dancer and then to a dance adjudicator to the president?
I started dancing as a child, obviously, and did all genres. Back then you used to have one teacher and they usually taught you all genres. That was how it all worked. And then as you got older and better and competitions got harder, you might specialise in particular areas, which I did. Then at 18, I opened a studio, had that until I was about 35. Then I sort of stepped away from owning my own studio and did contract work. So I worked for a number of studios, specialising in tap in the end, because that was an area that not many people were involved in. And then I got into adjudicating sort of by accident. Someone asked me, would I like to adjudicate? I took up that opportunity. Then I got involved with more competitions, got asked to join Australian Dance Adjudicators when it was in its early stages and stepped into the role of secretary. So I was in that role for 8 years. Then I was elected by the peers of the association to step into the president's role. And I've been there since 2017. Yeah.
And I know for me, I came in as a member a couple of years ago and I found the training and everything really beneficial. It's a wonderful organisation to be part of. So congratulations, which is why I wanted to interview you today.
Happy for that.
From your vantage point as ADA president, what are the core competencies that define a high-quality adjudicator?
For every adjudicator, they have to have a high knowledge of technique. Any performance is based on technical ability. And then, unlike an exam where technique is the primary objective and they're marked on technique more than anything, in an Eisteddfod or a competition, it's that showmanship, presence on stage, the ability to engage an audience. So, they're the things as an adjudicator that you look for.
How is a good adjudicator assessed in practice? How do we know?
From your training, you would know that it's really important to be able to put in words that can be either written or recorded if it's a voice critique. Something that the competitors, which may be young children or young adults, depending on the age group that you're adjudicating, something that they can understand. So you need to be able to put in words, or I obviously, when I do my reports, I make it a conversation and say, try and do this. It would be really good if you did this or something like that. But I think as an adjudicator, you have to be able to make them understand the message. So it has to be simple, but you have to be able to get it across.
And in Australia, so there's lots of freelance adjudicators. Why would someone want to become a member of an organisation?
Good question. And we get asked that a lot, as you know. People go, oh, why join? I can get work on my own, which is true. But belonging to the association, you have a network of people around you. You have someone that you can bounce things off. We come together, we speak about situations that may have arisen and get other input from other adjudicators. We also have resources that we pull on from national dance facts and costuming and what's expected for different national dances. So it has its advantages. Often we have to find a replacement. Someone might get sick or something comes up. We're reliable in that all of our adjudicators have had training. We know that they're well respected in the community if they come to us as a full member that doesn't require training. So yeah, we're not just putting someone out there to a competition for a committee to accept with sort of no backing.
in my experience, you screen really well and diligently. And I feel like that's so important, especially if you think about child safety. And there are so many dancers that have these amazing careers and that might dive straight into adjudicating, which, if they haven't been a teacher before, haven't known how to really communicate in that way, that could be tricky for that dancer that's stepping just straight into an adjudicator role. So in my experience, ADA really made sure that we were qualified teachers, and the training that you provided was very methodical and helpful. So I know you didn't mention that, so I thought I would mention that because that was for me a really important part.
Well, we rely on references and everyone's going to give a reference of someone who's obviously who likes them or will give them something favourable. But like the voice critiques, that's part of our online training, you can get a very good idea of someone and how fluent they are with technique and the ability to be able to speak to performers by listening to them, not so much what they write down.
And just for the sake of overseas European listeners, from what I understand in not so much England, Scotland, but over here in Germany and surrounds, there's no voice critique. So a voice critique is when the adjudicator or the dance judge will comment on your routine into a microphone that can only be heard in playback. So then those comments are something that the dancer can walk away with on how to enhance their routine, so they're not just getting a score. Just to give some education there.
Yes, simultaneous voice critique as they dance. So it's not reading, oh, you tended to lose your balance on that section. You can actually link it to the actual combination that they're doing, and if there's some sort of loss of focus or balance or something.
Yeah. So Australian Dance Adjudicators' current training in continuous professional development, what does that look like across technical, artistic and ethical domains?
Our current training really is based on junior and trainee members coming in, so those that haven't adjudicated. Some of them may have done adjudication courses. There's a couple of courses run here. So they may have that formal training behind them, but they may not have yet stepped into the competition arena. So we ask them to view clips, write written reports for us in all genres, so then we can see if there's a deficit, maybe if it's in classical, tap, whatever it might be. Then we will ask them to do a further module on that. Then we ask them to do their voice critiques and go from there. So at the moment, we're working on developing further CPDs for our members so that they have ongoing enhancement in all the areas and what's changing in different dance genres as we move forward.
Oh, that's really important. From my experience, that is so valuable for committees to know that their adjudicator has come with training, with references, and has been screened.
Yeah, I think it gives the committees something to relax with. They know they're going to get someone that's going to turn up and know the process, be professional in the job, and be able to run the Stedford. Like the adjudicator keeps the timing. We have to be able to keep track of session times and make sure that we can get the reports out, announce the placings, because that tends to be the way we run the competitions here. So you need to be on the ball. You need to be organised.
And how long, let's talk dance Stedfords, because they're slightly different to dance competitions, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you can explain the difference.
Okay, so in an Stedford, we have age groups, and then we usually have the novice or restricted sections for those that may have never won a prize, or maybe sometimes it depends on the committee's ruling. They might have only got a second or third, never a first place getter. Then we have the open sections, which is for the prize winners. So sometimes in a Stedford, you might get a restricted section where you don't think the competitors, if they got a first place, they would be confident in an open section. So you really have to think about that. Whereas in a competition, it could be everyone, like there's different competitions where everyone can be on the floor together. You could have a spectrum from very first time on the floor to someone that's been out there dancing since they were very young. So yeah, Stedfords are more sectioned, I suppose, and very much categorised as to the ability, whereas competitions seem to be much more open.
And the length of time. So what's a classic Stedford the hours for a dance adjudicator to be adjudicating in the day of a life of?
Usually we ask for a program when we're contracted out to be an adjudicator. So for me, once I get a program, I look at the sessions. So there'll be usually a number of sections in a session. 3 sessions a day is pretty standard. So morning, afternoon and evening. You would hope between 3 and 4 hours for each session, but you need to be meticulous in your timing. So, I work out how long each session should run for, allowing so many minutes for each child, and then calculate it that way. Because no one likes arriving in a Stedford and it's running 2 hours behind the scheduled time. Programming's important.
And the dance adjudicator, as you taught me, is the one that runs the time for the Stedford. Can you explain that to people that don't understand that?
Okay, so if we're starting competition at 9 o'clock in the morning, usually the adjudicator has a bell. They ring the bell, first competitor enters the stage. And usually you have a discussion with the committee and say, I'll ring the bell immediately after they've exited the stage, ready for the next one. So that allows your penciler, if you have a penciler and you're doing written reports, to finish them off. Or if you're doing voice critiques, it's just a matter of hitting the start on the software to start it off. And then at the end of the section, you need to have been progressively getting your placings or marking done so that you can be ready to be able to go out there and announce the places if that's what the committee have asked you to do.
Yeah.
And then you move through the day, ticking off the sections as you go through, watching to make sure you're on time.
Yep. Otherwise, it's 10, 11 p.m. finishes for the kids. Yeah.
And that's not fair.
No.
It's not fair for the kids. They can't dance at 10 o'clock. It's not. They can dance because your adrenaline's pumping, but it's not really fair to them to be there till 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah. And what are the most common sources of bias an adjudicator must guard against? And what methods help reduce them during a live session?
Committees will often say an adjudicator can't have taught any of the competitors in the previous year or 6 months. Sometimes it's 6 months. I often think if you've got someone up there that you may have taught, you're going to be harder on them because you know what they can do. So sometimes that bias could work against people that you know. But again, you've just got to be careful you don't get into liking a particular competitor. They might appeal to you, but you really have to look at them every time that they enter the stage. You can't say, oh, she was really good in that section, so she's going to be really good here, because it might not be her day for that particular performance. So I think it's really important to judge each performance as you see it. Don't rely on what's been done previously.
I noticed when I did my trainee with Rowena, our secretary, I sat and watched, and that was one thing, not paranoid, that's probably a strong word, but that was one thing I didn't realize if I had a bias, but I went in wanting to understand what my natural bias might be towards even like a look, a feel, a genre. And I sat there next to her as part of my little analysis, noticing, okay, what's my bias and how is that feeling, so I can then come back and objectively put the blank screen up and see see exactly what's in front of me. And anyway, I found that a bit interesting.
Well, it's just like personal taste. Some people like classical music, some people like rock and roll, but when you've got dancers in front of you, there will be certain things that really connect with you that you like. I will often say at a competition when I've been there for a while, you will notice that I like people that have costumes that show off the movements, that are not overly decorated. I like things that are simple and things like that. But you can see a child dressed like that may not have the technique. So you have to take that all into account. It's not just one thing.
Mm. How should adjudicators calibrate standards across genres and age groups while maintaining consistency over multi-day events? So
I think most important in its section, so perhaps let's just, for example, say you've got the 12 and under contemporary section, and there might be 5 competitors, it might be 25 competitors. I always think number one sets the standard. So that first performer comes out and gives you a performance which could be, you might not see anything better in that section, but for me, I will give that person a mark. And that's how I start my adjudication. So competitor number 1 sets a standard. Every person that comes out after that competitor has to beat them. So people always go, oh, I think the last person has the benefit because they're fresh in the adjudicator's mind. I don't think that. I think the first person has set the standard. So that's how I adjudicate and how I try and be consistent.
That makes sense. And adjudication feedback is often given through, as we mentioned before, voice critiques or written notes. From your perspective, what makes feedback truly helpful for the dancer and the teacher? So maybe for new adjudicators listening out there, if you can give them a lesson on the structure and anything else you can think of.
You need to build up confidence initially when you're going to give a report. So, you might comment on their costuming, the way they entered the stage, personality, all those things. But I think the most important thing is for the performer and for the teacher is to give something constructive that they can work on, because no one is 100% perfect. There's always something. I read a thing today about Fred Astaire practiced the one combination 8 hours for a day, one combination over and over. Like, that's perfection. And you can't expect that in kids on a stage. So there's always something to look for. It might be something little, but for them to better themselves and for their teachers to be able to say, well, let's work on this, you have to give that constructive criticism.
Definitely. And then they can walk away with something that they can take into their class with their teacher and work on, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what about some of the tricky moments if there was a routine where the costume might have been inappropriate? So how do you safeguard any psychological safety in adjudication context with that for the students? So
I don't think you should ever point a particular competitor out or an individual out and say, I didn't appreciate number 2's music. I didn't think that was appropriate. It's always best to be general in those comments. So you might get a 6 and under section and there might have been costuming in that or music that you didn't think was age appropriate. And I think you should comment on that. I may be old fashioned, but I think little people need to be little people for as long as they can. They get to a certain age. Where do they go? If they've done everything by the time they're 10, what have they got to look forward to? So I think age appropriateness is really important. Costuming, you have to think what I wear and what you wear might be 2 different things, but as long as it fits the style of the routine is really important. So costuming is a little bit more difficult because some people like, lots of frills and feathers and everything that sparkles and shines, and other people don't. But it's really important that the costume fits the piece of music, it fits the style, and it suits the performer. That they've actually, one of the biggest thing I think is that they've rehearsed in the costume, because there's nothing worse than seeing a child on the stage struggling in a costume that they've not danced in before.
And so would you give that feedback just on their personal critique, or would you at the end in your general comments just remind everyone about make sure that your music's age appropriate? How would you go?
Yeah, I tend to do that. Yeah, I tend to, at the end of a section in the Stedford, I always thank them for their performances, and I'll just say, here are some general comments for you to take on board, and this is how I've seen the performances today. And when you hear what I have to say, this is how I've placed them. Most people know if something's come across that's not quite age appropriate. I think you get that general feedback from the audience in their reactions anyway.
Yeah, because it is also about educating them and just having that gentle reminder.
And the arena, we're not in a nightclub. We're usually have a family audience. So those sort of things have got to be taken into consideration as well.
For sure. So social media now amplifies results and commentary in real time. What professional boundaries and communication principles should adjudicators follow online and on site?
I'm not a big fan of making comments online. I don't think it's appropriate. I like to keep a distance. I think everyone's entitled to their opinion. I don't question that. As adjudicators, that's what we do. We give our personal opinion, and that's why we need all to be different, because what you see in a performance, I may not see, and that's good because we want the performer to pick up on different things. So we don't want robots out there giving the same critique. But social media can bring someone down very quickly. I think it's most important that if someone puts something up there, that you be very careful. I am not a fan of making comments, especially about performances on social media. I think you just need to distance yourself. You've been paid to give your opinion at an Stedford. End of story for me. I just feel like you can get drawn the wrong way. Like sometimes I see things and I think, where is this going to end?
I was a little bit taken back the other week because I saw non-adjudicators. These aren't people that are working adjudicators at all, but just repost something that was going around of a girl, very, very over flexible, and lots of people commenting on, oh no, the tricks and how bad that is for that bodies. But all I'm seeing is you shared someone's photo online, and everyone's commenting on this poor girl who's a human and she has a mum and she's just super flexible, and you don't know the story and the meaning behind it. And yeah, that was something for me that I thought, oh, I just think people as well forget about, why are you sharing that and why are you talking about it and how? And anyway, that was a soft spot for me.
Yeah. I just think with social media posts, there's a person behind that post. And sometimes I think with comments, people don't think about that. You're behind a screen. You're not connected to that person. Whereas when you're sitting adjudicating, you've got that connection. You're watching them. You can feel the audience around you. It's very different.
Can you explain, the process, but also it might be an opportunity to educate parents out there on how they can best support their child when they are entering Eisteddfods and competitions?
I think the hardest thing is when you're adjudicating, especially a difficult section, there might be 25 in it, and the standard across that 25 is pretty consistent. I often say, this is my opinion. This is how I saw the performances. This is who stood out to me. And I'll say, I hope you perhaps see the same place getters, but perhaps you'll see them in a different order. We all have to accept adjudicators see things in their perspective, and it's my opinion. That's what I've been paid to sit there and give my opinion. Some parents will come up to you and go, oh, I disagree. I didn't like the who you chose for first place. And that's fine. You don't have to agree with me, but that's what I saw. And what my opinion is today is what's most important. That's what the placings are based on. I could see that those 25 dancers do those routines again 10 minutes later, and I might get a different outcome. But for those performances at that moment, that was how I saw the placing. So you've just got to be confident in your decision, that it's you that makes the decision.
And I can only hope that parents that might do that might just reflect and think, well, what are you teaching your child if you're going to go and complain about a decision? You know what I mean? So maybe it's also there's this process of the parents helping the child accept that it's a one person's opinion and this is how they saw it. And it's not the end of the world. It doesn't mean that they're not any good.
No. And sometimes the child that wins consistently at an Eisteddfod may not be the person that ends up with a professional career in dance, because you can have different personalities that fit different roles in professional gigs. So it all can play out very differently as you walk through dance, because what starts off in the beginning usually is not what happens at the end. And I think that's the biggest thing for parents to understand. It is a consistent journey, and things change throughout your dance life. I didn't know how I was going to end up. I thought I would be a teacher forever, but I walked away from that and decided to try something else.
Yeah,
I think that's good.
absolutely. Yeah, that is great. So in your view, what separates a technically clean performance from a winning performance at a scholarship level? And how should adjudicators weight artistry, risk, and originality?
So this is where being an examiner is different to being an adjudicator. A performance on stage is about engaging the audience, drawing them into your performance, and whether it's with your personality, the way you move, and the connection with the music. You have to connect with the emotion of the music. You have to have all those things happening. Dance is very much a visual thing. Technique, obviously, but your best technical dancer may not have that ability to draw an audience into their performance. So that's really artistry. Choreography is really important, to have good choreography, to know your choreography, and then to be able to perform it. They're all the things that you work towards with your teacher. The artistry then comes from how you perform it, and that stage presence, and that to me is the big difference.
What are ADA's stance on conflicts of interest and adjudicator selection, and what transparent practices should organisers implement to maintain trust?
So that could be you arriving in a Stedford and knowing a teacher there. So I think the most important thing for an adjudicator is to isolate themselves in that way that they're only connected to the committee. Don't get drawn into any conversation with a committee member that may be linked to a particular studio. I think that's really important. And often you'll have kids come by you and go, hello, hello. And I think it's always important that you be approachable, but don't get drawn into anything that might show to some other child who's looking on that you might be favouring that particular person. You need to keep your distance. You need to be approachable and willing to talk to them, because at the end of a competition, I think it's really important to go up to the kids and be there for them to ask you any questions that they might have. But until that point in time, you really need to remain distant. There's no way anyone can say she was talking to that dance teacher over there that she must have some. I don't.
No.
Don't get drawn into those sort of situations.
No. I know for me, I just want to keep my blinkers on, not look at anyone, just go do my job, go back to the hotel. And then after the last day, if people were linked with dance schools on the committee, you may or may not find out, but the judging's done. So
that's right. And in the scholarship class, I think that's a really good time to connect with them, because seeing them in a scholarship class, but then again, you're teaching a group, you're not one-on-one with anyone. So you just get to see the personalities a little bit closer. And that's a great opportunity when you get to do the scholarship classes. Yeah.
And some of the Stedfords also have that rule where if they've had an adjudicator, they won't have them back for another 3 years or 5 years, depending. And the surrounding areas then also won't employ that adjudicator for a while, which I think is so ethical.
Oh, I think it's brilliant, because they don't want to hear the same person telling them the same things. They need to have different adjudicators. Yeah, I think that's really good. When I was in competitions, 8 and 10, we used to get the same adjudicators roll out. And you're not learning anything. It's not until you get someone different that will point something out.
Looking ahead 5 years, what shifts do you expect in adjudication criteria, technology, education, and how ADA is preparing members for the future?
So technology-wise, voice critiques will take over. Getting people to be able to pencil for you is becoming one of those resources that's less and less available. So I think voice critiques will have a huge impact. Whether we'll do, I don't like the idea of it, where they have sort of online competitions where they either put up a video or it's filmed. I don't like that. I think live performance is the true world of theatre, and theatrical dance has got to be performed on a stage with an audience. So I hope we never lose that. I think that technique will be there. I mean, since I was dancing, if I did my 6-year-old jazz routine now with some other 6-year-old, if we didn't do all the acro tricks that are there now, and what's expected of a 6-year-old is a much higher expectation than what it was even 15 years, 20 years ago. So I think we have higher expectations as long as we don't push little people to do things that might affect their bodies.
Yeah, and speaking of that, what's your thoughts on all these tricks?
Not a fan. I mean, it's great to see a child that's flexible, but if we're in an acrobatics section, okay, I'll see all the acrobatic tricks. But if we're in a jazz performance, I want to see dance combinations. I don't want to see one trick into the next, into the next, into the next. And some of the flexible movements aren't really what you want, I don't think.
No, I've noticed so many more tricks in the last few years that it actually becomes a bit boring.
Certainly, and you sort of think, where's all that dance content gone? Like, you might get a few connecting steps, but overall, it's a one trick, then another trick. No.
I know when I had my school in the last couple of years, when the tricks were getting trickier, I would even have some dance parents or some students that might come and say, oh, that person does that trick. Can you teach me that trick? And sorry, you're not ready yet. And no, that's why. So even kids become fascinated with the trick, and that's their metric of success in dance now. And then the
Yeah.
parents as well that may not necessarily have a dance background listen to their child, or my child wants to know how to do an aerial or something. That was something I know as a dance studio owner was a little bit tricky to navigate, but I thought, well, this is about educating them on dance safe practice. And speaking of that, have you noticed the difference, because you've been adjudicating for a while now, of maybe dancers peaking too soon, and what does that do on the body?
That's what I said. Like, what's expected of a 6-year-old now is a long way ahead of what was expected of a 6-year-old 15 years ago. So, yes, some of the kids peak too early. I think they often get bored. It's okay if they can do all the harder combinations. That's really good. But you've got to keep something up your sleeve. It's like you don't put point shoes on 6-year-olds. There's a workup to that, and you need to make sure you've covered all the groundwork and have the strong technique before you put a pair of point shoes on. You just don't go straight to that. Same with the tricks. And I get very nervous with kids on stage with some of the different like Baranis and things. They're on hard floors. They've got no cushioning. So that's another thing that could in the future create issues. Yeah, I always worry about kids coming out. The adrenaline's pumping, they're nervous, and you think just not an ideal environment.
I'm finding now as a judge, I've seen so many tricks that it's like, oh, less is more. Have that pause in the mid routine and create a moment of suspense.
Yeah. I think the phrasing of the music gets lost sometimes because we just go bang, 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 100 mile an hour and all that. Yeah, we just tend to get lost in trying to fit as much as we can into 2 or 3 minutes.
Anyway, so if there's any choreographers listening out there, less is more. Quality over quantity, hey?
Yeah, it's just like costuming. I have a thing about modern expressive or lyrical.
Yeah.
And sometimes they come out with all these sequins and something, very spectacular. And I think, you know what you need? You just need a slip dress. It's not always about the sequins and the sparkle. Sometimes it's about the simplicity of it to connect with your piece of music and the emotion of the song. You don't have to spend millions of dollars on a costume.
So for teachers and parents supporting pre-professional dancers, what are the most helpful ways to interpret results and feedback across a season to aid in long-term development?
You just never know what sort of professional gig someone could go to. There's always the commercial dancer who will fit into, a group, but then your fabulous soloist may not be that person. So often I think you have to look at your group or troupe performances. Choreographers in big productions don't really want the individual. They want someone that will come across uniformly with the rest of the performers on the stage. So people have to be able to dance with others around them. I think that's really important to be a good professional. We don't have many soloist positions out there. So I tend to be dancing in a group, and I think being able to pick up on timing around you, not working to your own timing, that's something else that is hard to teach, but it's really important that dancers dance in groups and troupes, not just do solos. That's a big lesson for future opportunities that might come to them.
And speaking of that, say a dancer that's going to step into employment, if you think about the characteristics that a dancer needs to be able to, as we say, fit in to either a quarter ballet or in commercial into a group, what do you think Eisteddfods and competitions are teaching young dancers now to prepare them for that career, more about on their character?
I think in an Eisteddfod competition arena, it's really good that they teach kids that it's important to congratulate the prize winners, but it's also important to understand that, okay, you didn't win this time, but you did a great job and that was your best for that performance. And I think competitions often bring everyone on stage and everyone gets a round of applause, which I think's quite a good thing, to encourage everyone. But there is always going to be disappointment in the dance world, especially when you get up into the professional area. You've got to audition and sometimes you won't be the person they want. And you have to be able to understand, okay, that wasn't for me. And I think competitions do teach that. There's different people for different roles. Sportsmanship's really important. If you're the winner, you have to be able to accept, well, other people might be feeling disappointed and encourage them, come on, you can do this next time. And you often see kids walk around in little groups, whether they belong to the same studio or different studios, and they all seem to be connected and they'll call out to each other. And that's really good in that environment. Even when I was a kid, you used to go with other studios and make friends and connect that way and show us, what are you going to do now? And, it's just a bit of fun. It's not all competition.
It's lovely as well, and I think that also comes from the top down, from the dance studio owners and the teachers to also be modeling that backstage, congratulating the other dance school. And when kids can do that, the competitions can be a really positive experience for sure.
Yeah. Sometimes you get someone's left their ballet shoes at home. So you'll hear a call out and someone from somewhere will come with a pair of shoes. That's what you need. And that can happen in the professional arena. Someone doesn't turn up with something, everyone will throw together. I haven't got enough bobby pins, or I haven't brought my hairspray or something. And everyone pulls together to get that person on stage. That's really important. I'm going to turn the tables on this interview and ask you a question, Kate.
Okay.
Because you joined ADA. And when you came to ADA, you obviously owned your own dance studio and you came on wanting to learn about adjudicating. So what out there brought you to ADA? Was it our website? Did you hear something about us? How did you come to us and why? Why did you decide?
Good. Yeah. Well, I first of all was intrigued in being a dance adjudicator. Being very honest, I didn't know if I wanted to be one, but I knew if I wanted to be one, I wanted to be part of an organisation, because I think for me as a teacher, it was important to get that RAD qualification and learning. And so even though I'd done a Stedfords as a child, always when I had 23 years of owning my school, every year we did a Stedfords. I listened to so much feedback, read judges' critiques, and I know there's teachers out there that feel confident enough after just doing that for so many years to step into judging work. But I think for me, with my personality, I'm probably a person that wants to make sure I'm doing the right thing, make sure I can do the best, like cross my T's, dot my I's, and be part of a team and get proper screening. Because I thought, well, I'll do your training, and if you feel like I'm ready, then maybe that's, I'm ready. So that was definitely the qualification, like a bit of a stamp of approval, like, yes, you've gone through the training. We believe in you. I like that. But I didn't, I Googled online adjudication and then I found ADA, and I think it took me about a year to email. Not anything other than just the fact that I was busy. But then when I emailed, it was just really nice. And I loved that you provide that training. So, yeah, I don't know. I wasn't overconfident, but by the time I had my first Stedford, I was confident enough and I felt like I did a good job. And that was important. Yeah.
I remember you sending me through voice critiques and things like that, and us talking about them and different things. And you're always open to any sort of advice.
Your mentoring me of those voice critiques was so good. And I'm over here, I've got a job in the UK and I've worked for this company before. But initially she said, well, have you done voice critiques? I'm like, yes, I have. I've been trained by the best. But still, they were really, really fussy and rightly so about voice critiques. Yeah. She really wanted to make sure the adjudicator was doing a good job. And so I could walk in and feel confident. And I also listened to how they want me to do it. And at the end, and she's very, very honest, she's, said, great job, good. And
excellent.
I don't know if I would have got that had I have not done the voice critique training with you, because I remember a few I sent through, you went, no, you need to give more. No, like you, and so for me, I want to know that. I don't want to walk in presumptuous because as a school owner, I've listened to voice critiques and I've liked some of them, but now I've done the training. I think back and I go, well, actually that was too nice. That was too, not enough critiquing. And so, for me, that was really, really important. So
and I think that's one of the benefits of our meetings, because we've got adjudicators that have a vast range of experience. We can feed off each other, and I think that's one of the benefits of being part of a network. If you're uncertain of something, that you can always bounce it off somebody.
Yeah. And as well, in our meetings, you get to oversee, you get feedback from committees, and you give
Yeah.
feedback to us adjudicators, so we get to continually learn and grow. So that's really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get
That's really good.
a lot of emails both from committees and obviously from parents, but we don't tend they've got to go back to committees if they've got particular concerns. But yeah, we're there for Eisteddfod committees, especially because that's where we can either learn from the way things have been run or if there's something that needs to change, and we can give them feedback equally. And they're always willing to accept some sort of discussion.
Well, Lisa, it has been such a privilege to interview you today. Yes, you were hard to nail down for an interview, but thank you so much. I think it's important for the community out there to understand dance adjudicating and ADA as an organisation, so that's really good. And if anyone wants to find out more about ADA, the website will be in the show notes. Do you have any last words of wisdom to share to our audience at all?
I think as an adjudicator, you need to know what you like and you need to be confident. And if you're passionate about what you like, that comes across. And I think that's one of the most important things. You're teaching the little ones of the future, and it's surprising what they take on. I still remember my first adjudicator, and she was a lady that I looked up to, and I always wanted to be like her. And I think if you can give someone something like that, I think that's really important. She taught me a lot. If someone can take something away from what you say, I think you've done your job. That's really important.
Thank you.
It's
Very
been a
lovely
pleasure.
to talk to you today.
We're always looking for more members. So yes, please, ADA,
Yeah.
Australian Dance Adjudicators.
Yeah, I love being a member. Thank you for having me.
Oh, good, Kate. All right. Take care.